was March 1988, and 5 college friends, Jenna, Mark, Lisa, Ryan, and Tyler, drove down to Panama City Beach for spring break. They were looking for sun, parties, and freedom. What they got was a night of terror they would never forget. After a long drive, they found the San Carlos Hotel, an old rundown motel, just off the beach. It was cheap, and the front desk clerk, a gaunt man with hollow eyes, barely spoke as he handed them the key to room 217. The room smelled like mildew and cigarettes. The wallpaper peeled at the edges, and the faucet dripped brown water. But it was just for a few nights. They could handle it. That evening, they partied on the beach, drank too much, and stumbled back to the room around 2 a.m. Jenna was the first to notice something strange. The door was slightly open. "Didn't we lock it?" Mark asked. They swore they had. Inside, nothing was stolen, but Jenna's suitcase had been moved. And on the bathroom mirror, written in what looked like red lipstick, were the words, "I see you." They laughed it off, probably a prank by one of their drunk friends. They wiped it away and went to bed. The next day, they tried to forget about it. But that night, things got worse. Lisa woke up to breathing near her ear. She thought it was Ryan, but when she turned, no one was there. Then she heard knocking 3 slow, deliberate taps on the window. She woke the others. They checked outside. No one was there. They tried to brush it off, but then Tyler found handprints on the outside of the glass, small, like a child's. The next morning, Jenna went to the front desk to complain. The clerk stared at her blankly. "Room 217, he said. "That room's been closed for years." "What?" "No, we've been staying there," Jenna argued. The clerk's face darkened. A family died in that room in 1979. A father murdered his wife and 2 kids. The boy used to knock on the windows before he, Jenna felt ice in her veins. They packed their bags immediately, but as they were leaving, the door slammed shut by itself. The lights flickered. Then from the bathroom, they heard a child's voice whisper, "Stay with us." They screamed, ripped the door open, and ran. They didn't stop until they were miles away. Years later, they found out the San Carlos Hotel had been demolished in 1992, but former employees confirmed the murders really happened. It all started with an idea, a simple plan for the perfect spring break. 4 college friends, Emma, Tyler, Sarah, and Jake, wanted to escape the chaos of campus life and spend their week off somewhere quiet. They'd heard about a remote cabin on Blackwater Lake, deep in the woods of northern Minnesota. The rental listing promised solitude, scenic views, and no cell service, a digital detox paradise. For $500 split 4 ways, it sounded like a steal. They arrived late Friday afternoon after a long drive up winding forest roads. The sun was setting as they pulled into the gravel driveway. The cabin looked rustic but charming, nestled among towering pine trees. A rickety wooden dock jutted out over the lake's glassy surface, reflecting the fiery orange sky. Everything seemed idyllic, but there was something unsettling about the place too. Maybe it was how isolated it felt, or the way the wind whistled through the trees, creating eerie whispers. Or maybe it was the no trespassing sign, nailed crookedly to a tree just beyond the property line, its letters faded, but still legible. Whatever it was, none of them could shake the feeling that they weren't alone. The first night passed without incident. They made s'mores around a campfire, laughed until their sides hurt, and crashed early, exhausted from the drive. But things changed the next morning. Tyler woke up before everyone else. He stepped outside to take in the view and stretch his legs. As he wandered toward the edge of the property, he noticed something strange near the base of a massive oak tree, a pile of rocks stacked unnaturally high, almost like a cairn. At the center of the pile was a small leather pouch tied shut with twine. Curiosity got the better of him. He untied the pouch and emptied its contents into his hand. A handful of dried herbs, animal bones and what looked like shards of broken mirror. His stomach churned. This wasn't some hiker's lost trinket. It was deliberate. Someone had left this here, intentionally. Before he could think twice, Emma called out from the porch, asking where he was. Startled, Tyler shoved the items back into the pouch and hurried back to the cabin. He didn't mention what he'd found. Not yet. That evening, they decided to explore the woods behind the cabin. The trailhead wasn't marked, but it led deeper into the forest, where the air grew colder and the light dimmer. About half a mile in, they stumbled upon an old abandoned church. Its steeple leaned precariously to one side, and the windows were boarded up. The door hung open slightly, revealing darkness within. Against Emma's protests, the group ventured inside. The interior smelled musty, like wet earth and decay. Pews were overturned, and graffiti covered the walls. In the center of the room stood an altar, blackened as though it had been burned. On it lay another pouch identical to the one Tyler had found earlier. Jake picked it up cautiously. "What do you think this means?" he asked, holding it up. Sarah shrugged nervously. "Maybe it's some kind of local tradition, like leaving offerings? Or maybe we should get the hell out of here," Emma said firmly. Her voice trembled. Reluctantly, they agreed to leave the church and head back to the cabin. But none of them slept well that night. Each claimed to hear faint noises outside, the sound of footsteps, crunching leaves, branches snapping, and low murmurs carried on the wind. By Sunday morning, tensions were running high. None of them had mentioned the pouches again, but the memory lingered uneasily between them. Then came the discovery that sealed their fate. While exploring the attic for extra blankets, Sarah found a box filled with newspaper clippings and photographs. Most of the articles were yellowed with age, but one headline stood out: "Local family vanishes without a trace." The accompanying photo showed a smiling couple and 2 children, standing in front of the very cabin they were staying in. According to the article, the family had rented the cabin during spring break 15 years ago. They vanished midway through their stay. Search parties scoured the area, but found nothing, not even a single clue. The case remained unsolved. Beneath the clipping was a handwritten note in shaky handwriting. "They came for us in the night. Don't trust the water." Panic set in. Sarah rushed downstairs to show the others, but instead of packing up and leaving immediately, they argued. Tyler insisted it was just a coincidence, a creepy story meant to spook renters. Jake thought they should investigate further. Emma wanted to leave right then and there. And Sarah? She didn't know what to believe anymore. Their indecision cost them dearly. As dusk fell, the temperature dropped sharply. A thick fog rolled in from the lake, swallowing the landscape whole. Inside the cabin, the atmosphere grew oppressive. Shadows danced along the walls despite the fire roaring in the hearth. Every creak of the floorboards sent shivers down their spines. Around midnight, the knocking began. At first, it was soft, 3 slow taps against the front door. When no one answered, the knocks grew louder, more insistent. Finally, Tyler grabbed a flashlight and opened the door. No one was there. He stepped onto the porch to investigate, shining the beam into the fog. That's when he saw them, figures moving silently between the trees. Their shapes were distorted, almost humanoid, but wrong somehow. Too tall, too thin. Their heads tilted at unnatural angles. Terrified, Tyler slammed the door shut and bolted it. Back inside, he tried to explain what he'd seen, but the others dismissed it as paranoia, until they heard the whispers. Low, guttural voices seeped through the walls, speaking in a language none of them recognized. The words slithered into their minds, planting images of drowning, suffocating, being dragged into the depths of the lake. Sarah clapped her hands over her ears and screamed. Then the lights went out. In the pitch-black darkness, chaos erupted. They fumbled for their phones, using the screens as makeshift flashlights. Together, they barricaded themselves in the living room. pushing furniture against the doors and windows. Outside, the whispers grew louder, accompanied by the sound of splintering wood. "We need to leave. Now!" Emma shouted. Grabbing whatever supplies they could carry, they burst out the back door and ran blindly into the woods. The fog blinded them, and the ground beneath their feet felt unstable, like quicksand. Branches clawed at their skin, and the whispers followed, taunting them. After what felt like hours, they reached the lake. The boat they'd used to fish earlier was still tied to the dock. Without hesitation, they climbed aboard and paddled furiously toward the opposite shore. Behind them, the water bubbled violently, as if something massive lurked just below the surface. When they finally reached solid ground, they collapsed, gasping for air. Dawn broke over the horizon, painting the world in pale pink light. Exhausted but alive, they flagged down a passing motorist who drove them to the nearest town. None of them ever spoke of that night again, not fully anyway. They sold their stories separately to tabloids and ghost hunting shows, each version slightly different from the last. But the core truth remained the same. Something evil lived in those woods, and it didn't want them there. Years later, investigators reopened the cold case of the missing family. During their search, they uncovered evidence suggesting the cabin had been built atop an ancient burial ground. Locals whispered of rituals performed by a cult that worshipped a water deity, one that demanded sacrifices. The cabin burned down under mysterious circumstances shortly after the friends' ordeal. Some say it was arson, others claim lightning struck it. But those who truly know the story believe the entity residing in Blackwater Lake finally got what it wanted. And as for Emma, Tyler, Sarah, and Jake, they've never gone camping since. It was 2009, and a group of 6 college friends from the University of Michigan had planned their dream spring break trip to Panama City Beach, Florida. They were all seniors, eager to soak up one last hurrah before graduation loomed over them like an ominous cloud. The plan was simple: sun, sand, parties, and no responsibilities for 7 days. The group consisted of Alex, the self-proclaimed leader; Sarah, his girlfriend who always kept him grounded; Jake, the jokester with a knack for finding trouble; Emily, Jake's reserved but loyal counterpart; Matt, the quiet observer who rarely spoke unless it mattered; and finally, Lauren, the free spirit who loved adventure more than anything else. Together, they rented a beachfront condo through Craigslist. They arrived late on Friday night after an exhausting drive. The condo looked exactly as advertised online: modern furniture, panoramic windows facing the ocean, and just enough space for everyone to feel comfortable. There was even a hot tub on the balcony overlooking the Gulf of Mexico. It seemed perfect, too perfect, in hindsight. After unpacking, they celebrated their arrival by ordering pizza and drinking cheap beer purchased from a nearby convenience store. None of them noticed anything unusual about the condo or its location at first glance. The only odd detail was how isolated it felt compared to the bustling strip of hotels further down the beach. But isolation meant privacy, which suited them fine. Saturday started off well enough. They spent most of the day lounging on the beach, playing volleyball, and flirting with strangers. By evening, they decided to hit the bars downtown. As they walked back to the condo around midnight, slightly buzzed and laughing loudly, Lauren stopped abruptly. She pointed toward the waterline, where something glinted under the moonlight. "What is that?" she asked, squinting. Curious, they approached cautiously. Half buried in the wet sand was a small wooden box, intricately carved with symbols none of them recognized. It looked ancient, weathered by time and salt water. Despite Matt's protests, "We don't know what this thing is," curiosity got the better of them, and they brought it inside. Back at the condo, they examined the box more closely. It didn't have any visible hinges or latches, making it impossible to open. Still, there was something unsettling about it, an aura of wrongness that made their skin crawl. Eventually, they agreed to leave it alone and went to bed. Sunday morning began normally, or so they thought. When Alex woke up, he found the box sitting on the kitchen counter, though no one admitted to moving it. He brushed it off as paranoia and joined the others for breakfast. That afternoon, while tanning on the balcony, Sarah swore she saw someone standing on the shoreline, staring directly at their condo. When she mentioned it to the group, they dismissed her concerns. Probably just some drunk guy, Jake joked. But deep down, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that those eyes were watching them. Later that evening, things took a darker turn. While attempting to cook dinner, Lauren accidentally knocked the box off the counter. It hit the floor with a loud thud and cracked open. Inside was a single piece of parchment, covered in strange writing and drawings resembling human figures twisted into grotesque shapes. No one could decipher the text, but the images alone left them uneasy. Matt insisted they throw the box away immediately, but Lauren argued against it. "Maybe it's valuable," she said. "We should try to figure out what it means." Reluctantly, the group agreed to keep it, for now. By Monday, odd occurrences became impossible to ignore. Electronics shorted out randomly, plunging rooms into darkness. Doors slammed shut without explanation. And then there were the whispers, soft murmurs, heard only when someone was alone. At first, they assumed it was stress or fatigue playing tricks on their minds. But when Emily claimed to see shadowy figures darting across her peripheral vision, panic set in. On Tuesday, they tried leaving the condo altogether, hoping distance might solve whatever was happening. But wherever they went, the sense of being followed persisted. Strangers would stare at them too long, muttering under their breaths. Even locals seemed wary, warning them to stay away from the shore after dark. Desperate for answers, they returned to the condo and scoured the internet for information about the box. What they discovered chilled them to the bone. Similar artifacts had been linked to obscure cults practicing forbidden rituals along coastal regions throughout history. According to legend, these boxes served as conduits for malevolent entities seeking passage into our world. Wednesday marked the worst day yet. Sleep deprivation and fear had frayed their nerves to the breaking point. Arguments erupted constantly, and trust dissolved rapidly. Then came the blood. In the middle of the night, Alex woke screaming, clutching his arm. A jagged gash ran from his elbow to wrist, oozing crimson. No one knew how it happened, not even Alex himself. Worse still, faint claw marks appeared on the walls near his bed. Convinced they were dealing with something supernatural, they attempted to destroy the box. Fire wouldn't burn it. Water did nothing. Hammers bounced off harmlessly. Frustration turned to despair as reality crumbled around them. Lauren disappeared next. One moment she was arguing with Jake about whether to flee. The next she was gone, vanishing mid-sentence. Her screams echoed briefly outside before cutting off abruptly. They searched everywhere but found no trace of her. Thursday dawned gray and lifeless. 5 remained, terrified and broken. They knew staying another night might mean death, or worse. Gathering whatever courage they had left, they packed hastily and abandoned the condo. As they drove away, the rearview mirror revealed a figure standing on the balcony where the box still rested. Its face was obscured, but its posture radiated malice. The survivors never spoke publicly about what happened until years later during individual therapy sessions. Each recounted fragments of the same story, corroborating details despite having drifted apart since graduation. None could explain why they weren't all killed or why it let them go. To this day, the condo remains vacant, boarded up and condemned. Locals whisper warnings to tourists about disturbing relics washed ashore. And somewhere in the depths of the Gulf, the box waits patiently for new victims foolish enough to bring it home.